Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good day, whatever time you're tuning in, and welcome to Armchair Conversations with Rob. Today I want to talk about paradigms. Um, Paradigms being that collection of beliefs that pretty much influence the way the world operates and influences how we operate and other people too. It does help to dictate many of the patterns that affect the way things in the world go and the way we do things too. Um, and usually it's made up of a multitude of habits or beliefs. And what I mean by that is it isn't just one or two things that you think about life or one or two things that other people think about life. It's usually a bunch of things together, like experiences, um, the things you glean from other people, the feelings that you have about a certain subject. It all kind of mixes together to form your own personal paradigms as well as paradigms for others. And basically, I just want to play with that idea tonight. Um, Paradigms are kind of interesting because they function a lot like the programs do on a computer. Basically, um, you put a program into a computer and it will do whatever the programming language says it's going to do. So if you write a crappy program, it's going to perform stupidly, crappily, crappily. Uh, but you get what I'm saying. Versus if you have a program that's well thought out, well written out, and well organized, then that program is going to run the computer much more smoothly to do the task that you set it to do. And paradigms are often a collection of habits and thoughts and beliefs gleaned from other people, and then you put them together. So your paradigms aren't necessarily just going to be only your thoughts. They may be thoughts from other people that you admired or that you wanted to emulate, or even other people who influenced you to believe and act a certain way, and maybe at the time it sounded good to you or felt good to you. And there's nothing wrong with that because every paradigm doesn't need to be replaced or necessarily changed. I do believe in evolution in general, so you modify. You don't have to replace or drop altogether, but sometimes for health's sake you do. So I'm going to kind of play with that idea tonight. Um, a lot of times, those paradigms that we hold so dear, even the ones that aren't serving us, are encouraged to be accepted or passed on by our family and peers. Um, but I guess there are times when that isn't always useful anymore, and that's pretty much what I want to touch on tonight or today or with the conversation. A lot of times, well, okay, I'll give you a quick example. This is an easy one. I live in America, and I'm living in West Virginia, which is kind of like in the middle of the Mason-Dixon line. So there are some times when we act very northern, and sometimes we act very southern. Um, but how many folks out there have heard of turnips, or more specifically, turnip greens? Um, had a friend who he was shopping with his girl, and she is from here, and he is from Canada. So, give you an idea about how paradigms do affect the way the world works and how we kind of accept things without asking about it or challenging it. In America, particularly in the South, we eat the greens of the turnip, and we're more likely to feed the root to the pigs. In Canada, however, in this particular place that he came from, they ate the root and they gave the greens to the pig. Okay. Um, Very different result if you are either the pig or the person as far as the taste and what you get out of it. Neither answer is wrong, though. And so it's just an idea of thought. This is something they accepted and this is something that they did. And pretty much it was followed without question for umpteen generations. And just like it had never occurred to her to eat the root, it never occurred to him to eat the grains. And so, that's an example of how following a paradigm can change your experience of life. And so I just thought that was kind of an interesting, quick, and almost seemingly unrelated idea, but not really. So let's play on. Once in place, a paradigm or belief system or something that you believe, a lot of times it operates on autopilot. So once you believe something and you act on it and you behave in a certain way, you don't really deviate unless forced to. You tend to do the same things. It's kind of like, here's one. Let's say you're driving and you go to work the same way every day. And then for some reason, maybe you're off this day, or maybe you are going to a different place, you have an appointment. And when your brain kind of turns off when you're driving, that time in between where you end up where you end up, but you don't necessarily remember everything you do about getting there because your subconscious kind of took over. How many times on the way to an appointment, your brain's out to lunch and you take the wrong exit going as if you're going to work instead of going to your appointment? Happens to everybody, right? Well, that's kind of how I feel about paradigms that don't serve. Sometimes you keep repeating them without really thinking about it. And in my mind, in particular, that's things like bad habits, um, changes in the way you communicate with people, how you treat people, um, defensiveness, aggressiveness, shyness, you know. All of those things can be beliefs that you just have on autopilot. Like every time that someone says something to you that you don't like, that you're going to fly off the handle about it, or that if someone calls you out of your name, that you're going to resort to violence because that's what you were taught and that's just what you do. I just whoop your ass, da 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 da. And that's great until you run up against another paradigm that says when you do that, there are consequences, all the way up to things like maybe possibly jail time for assault, um, because that paradigm or that belief doesn't work in every situation. In this situation, it might be very different. You may need to not do that, okay? And so you have to think about things like that. So that's one of the things that I'm talking about when I talk about paradigms, because old ones tend to hold us back from reaching our goals and dreams if we leave them on autopilot and we never check them out. Um, it's just like, okay, flying a plane. Did you realize that in the course of flying a plane, those of you that know this, obvious, but those of you who don't, here's something interesting. They adjust that plane constantly to keep it on track to get to where you want to go. And if you left that plane by itself, it's more off course than it is on course without those minor constant adjustments to get it back on course to end up in Hawaii. Okay. They have to adjust and then fly a little and adjust and fly a little more and adjust and fly a little more and keep adjusting until they actually end up on point. And to me, that's kind of where I sit with paradigm or belief system. It can serve you very well in the beginning, but you may have to modify it at times to stay on the course of what you're trying to do. You can't just use the same old thing, to every square peg, that wants to fit in a round hole. It just doesn't work. It's just like, every tool in your box can't be a hammer. You got to have different tools for different jobs, and paradigms or belief systems are no different. You have to have different beliefs for different things you want to do and different goals, or you have to take the core values of what you have and modify them to get to where you need to go. So the it would be kind of like, as far as an old paradigm and not changing it and then wondering why you don't get the result, would be like trying to see the sunrise by running west. It's just not going to happen. Okay, it's you could do that forever and people could pat you on the back and say, "Atta boy, you're just so dependable and reliable," and but you ain't seen no sunrise, have you? Okay. you know just to go off on a tangent for a minute, this is something that kind of aggravates me. In our culture here in America, mostly, you are rewarded for being, um, well, let's look at some of the words: dependable, reliable, somebody you can count on, stoic, um, to me, dogmatic, stubborn, hard headed. You see the difference in the perception of the words? Um, and people give you medals and trophies and pat you on the back for being relentlessly dogmatic and stoic and dependable. But if you change often, you make adjustments often, you're called fly by night, a flake, shaky, jakey, um, indecisive, um, unreliable, all because you're willing to make adjustments in your paradigm, your beliefs about what works and what doesn't work. Interesting, huh? And so I say balderdash to that because flexibility is power in my mind. You have to be able to be smart enough to make adjustments because honestly, one of the laws of nature is to adapt or die. Animals that don't adapt don't make it to the next round. Okay, and adaptation is not sticking to your guns at all cost or doing such and such a thing at all costs. To me, that's ridiculous. If you're not getting the results and it's happening over and over and over again, you need to change your formula. Okay. It'd be like making Kool-Aid and people keep dying. Obviously you've missed step one, which is to change your formula and change your approach until it works. Um, So, the takeaways from this one is for growth, sometimes it's very healthy to challenge your old beliefs and challenge the paradigms of yourself and others. Um, be not afraid to ask why and expect an answer. As a matter of fact, when it comes to my kids, I have a funny thing because I told them a long time ago that they do not have to obey blindly. Um, there are times when a parent or an adult is going to pull rank on you, but in general, if a person can't tell you why they want you to do something, or at least give you some kind of a general explanation of the direction they want you to go, you don't necessarily have to follow them. Now, has that made parenting a hell of a lot harder for me? Yes, because I don't have my kids just do as I say. I have to be challenged sometimes to provide an answer. And if that answer doesn't make sense to them, it's not that they don't still have to necessarily do it, but it makes me rework myself and be sure about why I'm telling them to do something and why I'm asking them to do something. Um, and so, again, challenge paradigms. That's a really good one. You also have to be willing to modify or change yours. And what I mean by that is, if something in your paradigm isn't allowing you to have the happiness that you deserve, or allow you to have the money you deserve, or allow you to be in a position where you can be comfortable and happy and healthy, you may have to change that thing. If your idea is to lay your head back and tell folk what you gonna do, that paradigm, that belief, that practice may not get you in the door with some things. When I was a salesman for a particular supplement company, I had a guy come in one time, and it was obvious that he had been uh, not too long up off the street, maybe possibly had even been to prison, you know, and is coming out and he's trying to make his life work, but he's trying to use the principles that he probably learned in the pen, for lack of a better word, or in the street to get me to be interested in hiring him. So he walks in, "You got a job for me?" Okay. Now I'm not a wimp by any stretch of the imagination. And so I decided to go ahead and challenge this man to help him because I don't know. You know how there's just something about people that you like. I don't even know where this guy is right now. I hope he's doing well. But I said, first of all, you don't come at me like that. Um, you're trying to get a job, and you can't come in here like you're going to beat me into hiring you. I said, you can't come at people like that. I got the job. You want the job. Okay, so coming in here like that ain't gonna make me want to give you nothing but an ass whooping. And he kind of, it was shocked him, I think, because somebody actually gave a damn and was willing to talk to him. He started laughing. But, and then I started telling him, I said, I said, you have to come in with the understanding that you're not in the position of power. You're trying to negotiate to get something that you want, and you have to adjust yourself. And of course, we talked for a little while and everything. And, and then I sent him on his way. I didn't have a job for him. I actually had all the people I needed. But I sent him on his way, and it wasn't even 20 minutes later he came back and told me he got his first interview. Because, again, he was willing to modify his beliefs and patterns, because those things are what govern your actions and what you do. Because if you believe a certain way, you're going to more than likely act a certain way, unless you're just like a complete walk-in dichotomy, or even an out-and-out liar or faker. You're going to act from what you believe. I also believe sometimes you have to create new patterns. You have to create new beliefs. You have to replace old ones with new ones, which goes to number 4, which is drop them. There are times when you have to drop your paradigm. You have to drop your beliefs about a certain subject. You may have to drop your hatred. You may have to drop your anger. You may have to drop your defensiveness. You may have to open up and trust people sometimes. That is something that is very interesting to me, and is something that you should definitely think about, because sometimes you do have to drop them. But my all-time favorite is creating new ones, new beliefs, because only you can create new beliefs about what you deserve, what you want, and even what you're going to get. You sometimes have to work through problems and work around things, but you can absolutely create a new vision for yourself and a new idea of what you can do, what you're capable of, and what you're going to get, because the orders you place will be filled. And if you order that you're just going to make it, that's exactly what you're going to get. Or that you're not going to get a certain job because da 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 da, that's exactly what you're going to get. So be willing to create new ones, new paradigms, new ideas about who you are and what you can have. So, takeaways from this are: your paradigms aren't just your own. They're a combination of all the things you've learned from people that you've either decided to accept, or because they were somebody you wanted to emulate, and so you do that. Sometimes they serve you, sometimes they don't. Be willing to look honestly at which. Because if you define it by your goals, then it'll be easy for you to figure out which paradigms you want to keep, which ones you want to modify, and which ones you want to drop. Which leads me to the last thing I want you to take away from this. It is healthy sometimes to challenge your old beliefs. It is okay sometimes to create new beliefs, modify the ones that you have, or drop them altogether so you can get towards your goal and what you're after. Because at the bottom of the day, you have things you want and desire, and sometimes you're going to have to do exactly what it takes, no matter how interesting or uncomfortable or even fun, to get to where you want to go. And so on that note, I'll end it. But again, what do you believe and what do you think, and how does it color your world? And is it something you need to keep, or is it something you need to modify, or is it something you need to drop? And again, guys, I always appreciate you. Thank you for sharing my armchair, and I wish you good luck and good health.